Well, I appreciate you, Steven, for joining me today. I know we have talked a few times and really interested in GoodCarts and its mission and sort of your overall background in tech. And I know we speak a lot about technology and social impact and how the two can sort kind of merge and form this relationship that could bring a lot of features to the world that benefit not only consumers but also companies, organizations. There's such an amazing pipeline of ways technology can embed itself into our lives for good. And I think maybe we're at a bit of a crossroads in our culture where we see sort of the negative press of technology and the bad things it can do. But maybe let's talk about some good things it could do. And
Yeah, that
let's
sounds
talk
great.
let's talk about your journey in sort of impact tech, if you will.
I was always someone who was a little bit excluded in life, right? I fell in the bathtub at 3, broke my front teeth, had buck teeth, was the kid that always kind of was pushed aside, if you will, by my classmates, and it just didn't seem right to me. And as I became a young adult, got involved in all kinds of different programs like youth and government and things that allowed me to have a say and build that confidence that, hey, maybe I am somebody. And I've always sort of thought about that underdog. And so when I was actually in grad school, this is like 91-ish, 1991, I got internet for the first time. And I was a political science undergrad and into campaigns and all that kind of jazz. And I got online and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be the most powerful medium in politics ever. And then I often would say, well, actually, it's still television, but
Hmm.
in terms of organizing and communicating. And, through a whole mix of things, I ended up creating the world's very first election information website. And I created it in a nonpartisan way
Hmm.
called Minnesota e-Democracy. And, I got candidate information, but we also had an online candidate debate and
Hmm.
we had a discussion forum about Minnesota politics. This is in 1994, right?
Wow, it's crazy.
The media was on our site. We had people type in the voter guide from the government because we couldn't get it electronically. We had to retype it in to get it on the internet, right? We had volunteers there used to be had these suitcase Macs that you could use with a modem, right? I don't know what they were called, but they were like these portable Macs. We had volunteers on election night sitting next to the green screen, typing in election results in real time from the green screen to put it on the internet, some of the first election results ever online. But what I discovered, as having been a political person and now doing nonpartisan work was that, that ability to convene people and connect people across differences. When people kept talking on our forum on Minnesota politics, we're like, oh, our job is to be a trusted, neutral host of dialogue among people who disagree, right? And these are early days. So, I got invited to speak all over the world, journalists from all over the world calling me up. I've spoken now in 35 countries about democracy and the internet in the 90s and in the early 2000s and to about 2010 or so. That was kind of my life, right? I would do speaking and consulting around the world to governments and others about how the internet could be used in democracy. And then I would volunteer with my Minnesota project.
So let's get into good cards a little
Yeah.
bit, but also how did that transition from gov tech, for lack
Yeah.
of a better term, into sort of the private sector, right? Did somebody call upon you and say, "Hey, I got this idea to do good cards. Here it is. Let's do it." First,
Yeah.
let's talk about just the formation of good cards and the
Yeah,
idea of it.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously for me, it's fundamentally shifting from technology for good in democracy to technology for good via voting with your dollars, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, I had this green consumer guide when I was in college that I had picked up actually in England when I was studying over there for a bit, and always had this interest in like how do I shop my values? How do I do things in my life that impact? Because you add all that up, right? We can move all kinds of things without having to even wait for government policies to change, right? So, I mean, for me, honestly, it comes down to like a big reboot. So what should I do next? And how can I use my digital door knocking skills for somebody else? So instead of just pushing edemocracy.org, where can I find a place where I could really, use my skills? And I connected with a longtime friend of mine, someone I'd connected with every few years, named Chris Dykstra. And he is the founder of a company called WearCorp. And he's also the founder of GoodCarts. And so he had an alpha version of GoodCarts kind of sitting on the shelf. They had developed it. They'd gotten 20 stores into this network. It was basically, they had some issues with how hard it was to recruit stores. So he opened up his laptop. We were meeting over lunch and he showed me this demo. And basically, I describe GoodCarts as a smart digital version of coupons on the back of the receipt, right? So you look at
Mhm.
you go to a receipt page, you get to go there. And I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, this could work. This could work. And I was like, I just basically spent the next 3 months talking to him, researching it, digging into the sort of the model and the technology. And, now we're getting close to 100 stores in the network. And we launched our Shopify app in September. We went from
Mhm.
basically like from our beta phase when I joined to now we're public as of September.
So let's talk about the actual tech part of things,
Yeah.
and let's talk about it from a Shopify point of view, because I think probably most people that are listening, most entrepreneurs, they probably have Shopify stores. Some might have WordPress or Squarespace or
Oh yeah, so in the U.S., Shopify is popular, but maybe it's not even. It's about 50% of e-commerce stores overall. But here are the numbers that are even more niche. This is our own research using a tool called Built With, just trying to figure it out in terms of purpose-driven retailers. B
hmm
Corps, fair trade, ethical
Yep.
fashion, folks that have purpose. I have 38 keywords that I
Hey.
analyze on the home pages. So about 4% of e-commerce sites fit that purpose-driven space based on our analysis.
hmm
However, the highest number of those are on Shopify. So about
hmm
6% of all the Shopify stores in the United States kind of meet those criteria. So it is a niche kind of space where they are talking about sustainability, organic, ethical, those types of
Yep.
phrases. But Shopify has the momentum in terms of the whole plugin environment or the apps environment. And so
Yep.
we just invested in creating a Shopify app to make it like you can join GoodCarts in 10 minutes. I mean,
Yep.
you just push the add button, create a coupon for your store, and now you're getting free traffic from all the other stores in the network. And the radical thing that we did with COVID is we dropped our commissions, and then our founder had an epiphany, right? He said, you know what? Let's just scratch commissions for impact retailers. Now, we certainly will have fees and commissions for fees for bonus services, things that are extra as we build up our relationships to 100
Sure.
stores or 1,000 stores, whatever. And then we have other affinity networks where there could be fees or commissions. So it's not like it's going to be free forever because we got to have, like I said, you got to generate the revenue in order to do the service. But it's really opened things up, and there's really no reason not to join unless basically your brand is just one that doesn't like working with others. I mean, and
Yeah.
some brands are like that, where they just prefer like we don't ever collaborate in any kind of official way. We don't link to anybody else. But because all the stores have gotten their money, they got a customer. It's someone who's actually paid, and now they're going and being introduced to a cross sell, right, to see opportunities from other stores, and it's an amazing engine with a super high click through rate to the stores with conscious consumers in a buying mood with a credit card still out.
Let's talk about like a real world example of how it might work, right? So
Yeah.
a consumer goes to so let's say the Women's Bean Project.
Yep.
They click on pay now or buy now from the shopping cart on the Women's Bean Project. Then what happens? Here's kind of where the magic happens, right? For the
That's
consumer
right.
and for the
Yep.
brands.
So the Women's Bean Project sells soup, so bean soups, right? So you would, when the receipt comes up, there's a little box that's sort of put into the receipt, and it's very muted. It's intentionally has no branding. It just says, "Hey, as thanks for your purchase, you've earned exclusive discounts at other shop for good and sustainable stores. Like us, we're part of the Good Carts network." And then there's a click here button in green, or whatever color the store changes it to. So we have a super high click-through rate from receipts. We don't record it. It's proprietary, but it's what opens up eyeballs when we explain the model to folks one by one. They push that button, right? And then it's what we call a brand discovery moment. It opens up and you have, if you're on mobile, you see one discount at a time. If you're on desktop, you see a whole range of different discounts that you can choose from all sorts of brands you've quite likely never heard of.
hmm
And so the challenge obviously is everybody's looking for Patagonia or some big brand. We're doing a lot of smaller, and we actually got Naturepedic, famous organic mattress company, just
hmm
joined. So we're actually getting larger and larger stores to join. Dean's Beans, that's our big fair trade coffee brand from out east. It's part of our network, and so you have that sharing going on. People can choose one.
hmm
They click one, and then they get a little more information about not just the deal, but also their impact mission of the brand. And then you put an email address in to claim a coupon, and then of those who actually claim them, about 8 to 10% of those coupons are redeemed, which is actually kind of twice what you would expect when someone comes to your store for the first time, having never been to your website
Yep.
before, with a
Yep.
discount in hand. Yeah, so it's that simple. Like, we're not an ethical brand directory, we're not an ethical brand marketplace. You can't buy from our store. It's really just a place like post checkout to get a perk of like earning these discounts at other stores.
And you can also, it's a discovery tool as well, right? That's really cool. The cool thing about it is that you can discover all these conscious brands that you said probably never heard of, right? Which is the cool part about it that I love.
Yeah, and then also, when we hit 100 stores, we're gonna have a campaign called 100 Stores, 100 Impact Stories. So we are gonna boost up our member showcase. We don't offer discounts right on our own site to the public without having made
Mm,
a purchase somewhere
right.
else.
Right.
But you can certainly in the future link in and start with the store. I see people sometimes they'll get a discount at one store, they'll go to the next one, they'll get a discount for another store, and they'll make two or three purchases. Boom, boom, boom. What a deal! And who wins, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the impact side of product wins. The store wins because they have a new customer. The customer wins because they got a little discount. I always say, wouldn't you like to save the world for 20% off?
But
Yes.
here's what's cool from the
Yeah.
business point of view, right? If a store brand wants to sign up, it's free, correct? Like
Yeah.
you essentially get free traffic and free customers to your site.
That's
Like
correct.
that's the power in it.
For
Like
qualifying impact retailers, we
sure,
do have
of
small
course.
businesses that that are selling traditional products that install our Shopify app, and we don't, it's unadvertised, but we have a founder circle for small business. We're having conversations with people about a black-owned business circle, about a Made in USA affinity network. So we
Hmm.
could see lots of different networks that may
Yep.
or may not have fees. But the key thing is free for impact retailers, and there'll just be bonus options down the road where if you want extra services or extra traffic or whatever, you'd have an option to pay. But right now we're in it for the long haul, and because we're powered by the exit traffic of our stores. Normally those receipts are looked at and closed, so it's like totally untapped. And the only losers in our model are the digital behemoths. It's Facebook and Google ads. It's
Hmm.
Amazon wanting
Yeah.
their 20%. I mean, basically we're allowing you to skip the middleman, not have to bid against each other advertising wise to reach conscious consumers. We're really trying to create that, an end around crappy digital advertising.
I want to go back to Shopify real quick because we mentioned
Yeah.
that it's kind of a flawless. It's a flawless ad with Shopify, but WordPress, Squarespace, any other of these platforms is it just a snippet of code? Like what can these stores do to get good
Yeah.
cards?
So obviously, if they go to goodcarts.co, it'll say Shopify, click the button, but it says other platforms under there. And so basically, we are going to launch new apps. Next one is WooCommerce is the plan, and then Squarespace, then likely Magento, which has a lot of bigger stores on it. But right now,
Yeah.
any store, as long as you can basically use affiliate marketing with your online store and are on your own domain name, so not on Etsy, but on your own domain name,
Hmm.
you can just plug in a little code in your receipt that will interact with our site. It just takes 30 minutes, 40 minutes if you're technically inclined, or you ask us for help and we'll help install that last little more complicated step for you.
I'll end on this, and it's a little bit about the future because I think we're both pretty optimistic on the impact business space, especially in consumables. I think there's a transformation unlike
Mm,
anything ever we're
absolutely.
witnessing right now, and I'm so honored to be in the middle of it in some little way, right? I think we both are, and kind of get to interact and, like you say, hear all the origin stories and the creative ideas and brands that are coming out. So let's say the next like 2 to 3 years, the plan for Good Cards is just to keep building, getting more brands involved on the platform. So you referenced some of these bonus things. Are you able to share what those are, or maybe down the line what they could be,
Well,
what you guys are thinking about?
yeah, well, certainly. Actually, yeah, I'm glad to share. I mean, one of the whole goals in this is to, now that we have 100 members, or as we have 100 members, we're talking to them about like, well, what would they like
What do
to
you need?
see?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So one of the things they would like, they would love to have the email addresses of the people who claim coupons for their stores. So we could add a
Right.
checkbox that would say, hey, give my email. And I don't know whether 10% would check it, but that might cost $1 an email. I don't know, right? So it'd be a bonus feature. They want that. They also proposed ideas to us like we would like to do joint giveaways. So if you see, sometimes you'll see like
Yep.
5 brands will get together. Like Rafflecopter, is it Rafflecopter? Something like that is a tool that does that. Well, maybe we could build that into GoodCarts where, we could hook up 5 of our stores. They do joint giveaways. Everybody puts their email address in to win, has given permission then to those 5 brands to then be contacted by those stores.
Yep.
These stores are hungry for ways to get around the rising digital ad costs of Facebook, right? They're hungry for ways to get those new first-time customers. Other ideas around you can A/B test your creative right now for free on our platform. You can like create multiple coupons. It just runs in your slot. That's a great thing to do. But I've been working on outlines for the idea like, well, maybe there's a version where you pay a little bit. Maybe it's $10 a month. Maybe it's something more than that. We'll see what happens. But where you could basically put in 5 different subject lines, put in 5 different images, and we would help them discover at a very cheap cost what actually works. Because, these are conscious consumers that are coming through our site mostly, but this is a competitive moment where you have to like figure out how do you get chosen over someone else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's important. I should just mention one thing a lot of stores ask about is we have a thing called the block list. So you can, if you're a coffee, you can set up so you don't share your traffic with other coffee brands.
Yeah,
It's important,
right.
right?
No, for
But
sure.
in general, like we just, that'll be free
Yeah,
because it's required. And then I mentioned that impact investing piece. I mean, I really think business model wise, if we could create some relationships there where maybe an impact investing firm would, pay X amount a month to subscribe to us. We don't want to disclose. It's very sensitive data, so we have to be very careful.
yep,
It'd be all like opt in. The store would have to decide, yes, I'd like to be contacted, or the store would have to come to us and say, hey, I'd like to be exposed to people who are looking to invest in startups like this. Thought about crowdfunding tab as well. Like, if you don't want to
yep,
buy something, why not invest in some of these brands? I mean,
yep.
what an opportunity, to just take that traffic. We have eyeballs. Let's use them for good. And in some cases, it'll cost something. In other cases, it won't. The last thing I'll say is that as we create these other affinity networks, also have traffic partners in media, petitioning sites, nonprofits. You made a
Yep.
donation, you earned a discount. We could certainly have some revenue share with like traffic partners, and then
Yep.
the stores would opt in to say, yes, I would like extra exposure. They would understand what it would cost for that extra exposure. I love results-based models, would only cost them something if it works, and opportunities like that.
No, I love it. I think the giveaway idea is brilliant. I think that's a great way to get more people sort of involved and have that sort of action of entering their email list to get, to win 500, $1,000 worth
Yeah.
of conscious gifts essentially, right? So I think that's a
Yeah.
great idea that would really,
Well,
really work really, really
well,
well. So
well, and we want your ideas too. So if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I got a good idea for GoodCarts, so get in touch, right? Because
yeah,
we're trying to create a different way to grow the impact economy, right? Like I actually had a website. Our goal is like create $1 billion worth of revenue across the impact economy, right, in the next 10 years, right? Wouldn't that be great, right? So let's do that. And it might be an idea that you have that you can bring to us or share with us. Maybe you're a member store, you're going to join us. You also have some ideas. Let's build it together and let's do something different.
that's the power of tech. We can pretty much do anything at this point. It's just the ideas. Appreciate it, Stephen, so much. Thanks for taking the time. Love Good Cards. Been looking at it for a while and reviewing it. And, I usually won't really do stuff like this unless I believe in it. Right. So appreciate what you and the team have built. Free traffic to your website, perhaps a new customer for free. I mean, cost of acquisition, like, could be zero, is pretty incredible. I think it's an
Yep.
innovative idea, especially within this niche space that is growing. But again, it's also just a tool to add to all the tools that we use. But I know for impact brands, things can get expensive, right? All these email
Yep.
service providers that you need, all these paid Shopify plugins or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, hosting fees, right? There's so many costs that go into, a conscious business from an ecom
And we
perspective that
complement
this
we
is a free one.
complement
It's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
complement all those other tools. There's no one who else does exactly what we do in the purpose-driven space. There are a few tools that like will share ads for all e-commerce stores before checkout, and they're bottom of the barrel kinds of ads, right? It's just not good. We can have different circles. I'd like to have an all vegan network, for example. The vegans have said, as long as all the coupons are vegan, we'll do it. And I said, okay, bring me 20 vegan stores, right? Because we can do that. Our technology is there. We can create these dedicated circles. And, I'm just inspired to figure out how we can figure out their stores, how to drive them more traffic, have that. It's free customer acquisition cost because they've invested their exit traffic in it and they
Mhm.
deserve to have something back in return for that. And then the question will be, once we have critical mass of 1,000 stores and more, like what can we do and build together that will cost something that will actually be worth it for them, and
Mhm.
we'll make that happen.
Appreciate the time, Steven. Have a
Thank you.
great day. Have a great week.